Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Three new, interesting and important data points on coronavirus today. We'll try and declare to them for you. Number one, there is a new serological survey in New York City, which shows, in fact, New York State, but which shows particularly in New York City that rather than the numbers that we have seen so far of positive cases, numbers are probably enormously higher. So 1 in 5 of adult New Yorkers above 18 has already been infected. 1 in 5, 21%, and those below 18 have not even been tested. That's one. Second, again, this is data from America. In fact, all the three data points today that we're talking about have come from America, but that's also logical because America has the largest number of cases, largest number of deaths. It also has the most open system of data sharing. So the second point is about ventilators. New research has come out telling us what happens when a patient is put on the ventilator, because ventilator is something that's been talked about all the time. Everybody needs more ventilators. It is seen as a life-saving thing, which it is. But we have to see the perspective based on this data. And third, some very interesting and important data on who's dying. Because if you have 20 people dying or 200 or 300 or even 1,000, your data may not be that good. But when you have nearly 50,000 dying overall, but when you have a large enough body of people, unfortunately, dying, then that can give you some wisdom. So these 3 points we talk about today. So first of all, this survey in New York, which was based on antibody testing of a large number of people, and this was done on a random basis, which is a scientific way of sampling. That's how, say, opinion pollsters do their sampling. It's random, truly random. So there is no selection bias, there is no class bias, there is nothing. So in this case, people were randomly tested at grocery stores because everybody goes to buy grocery, and there it was found that in New York City it was 21% seropositivity. In Long Island, which is away from the city but not that far, it's 17%. That's also quite crowded. Westchester County, which is more elite and which has bigger houses, gardens, etc., people don't live that close together. Even public transport going there, local trains going there are not as crowded as the New York subway, particularly at peak times. That had 12% and the rest of the state had 4%. So the state overall has 14%. 14% for the state of New York will take you to almost 3 million positive cases. And remember, those below 18 have not even been tested. So a lot of them might also be positive and might have been asymptomatic like the bulk of them. So this is a very interesting finding. Now, the governor of New York said that this makes one very important difference to our understanding of the disease. One, it tells you that some kind of herd immunity has already begun to build. So it has spread a lot more than we had imagined. But second, that the infection fatality rate, or IFR as it's called, that's the percentage of people who die out of those who got infected, now is seen to be much lower. Because if this is true, then you don't divide the number of confirmed positive cases by the number of deaths to get your percentage, but this entire body of people, because at some point they've been infected. If you look at that, then you're looking at an IFR of about 1% or less. In fact, Dr. Siddharth Mukherjee, who we keep quoting all the time, he's an oncologist and immunologist. He tweeted last night again, based on this survey, that this tells you that herd immunity has begun to build, but it will still take some time before it gets to 50%. And by the time it gets to 50%, are you then willing to see so many more deaths, even if it's 1%, or in his case, he says it may be about 0.7%. Even then, on a base like that, it's a lot of people. And then he also discusses what might be a solution and what is the data telling us. And he says maybe the data is telling us that low cost, low tech solutions might be better, which means hand sanitizers, masks, social distancing, and getting back to work. I don't know what will be the best course, but this is what this data tells you, and this is very important data. Governor Cuomo also said that surveys like this can also tell you, can also guide your exit policy, your opening and closing. Exit policy is are my words, not his. He said opening and closing. For example, if you find in some area that numbers are rising, then you can close that area. If you find in some area where numbers are not rising because it's a quick test, it's a cheaper test, you can do it at a mass level, you can go to asymptomatic people, then wherever things are getting better, you can open up a bit more. So you can then have a graduated or a careful opening. Again, this tells you that wherever you have crowding, for example, subways, public transport, bars, theaters, wherever you have people coming together, shopping, there more people get infected, because remember, in the same state, in New York City is 21%, in smaller places, tiny counties, etc., it's only 4%. That's why we said the state's average is 14%. So that is one important finding. The second important finding, as we told you, is about ventilators. So ventilators have become a kind of mantra. Every country says we don't have enough ventilators. Where do you find more ventilators? Then everybody buys in desperation ventilators from China. Then Chinese ventilators don't work. Then you say Chinese ventilators don't work. And Chinese also gift ventilators. They gave away 1,000 ventilators to the city of New York at a time when Governor of New York was asking for 40,000 ventilators. I think he got a couple of thousand, or maybe 3,000 or 4,000. And Donald Trump keeps talking about that, mocking the Governor of New York for that they wanted tens of thousands. We gave them only this many, and they still were not able to use those, and they can give these to others. So ventilators have become a big talking point, even in India. India has too few ventilators, we know, because in India, it's an expensive piece of equipment. It's also not an equipment that you use all the time, that you need all the time. So obviously, nobody is invested in building a stockpile of ventilators in India. But this research that's come out in Journal of American Medical Association, this puts ventilators in perspective. And before I open that out, I will remind you of two things. One, in one of his press conferences, Donald Trump had said, try these new possible drug therapies. You got nothing to lose. You keep asking me for ventilators. You can get ventilators, but do you know what is the survival rate once you go on ventilators? And then he said, I know it, but I don't want to tell you because you don't want to hear it. But I know it. Your guess was as good as mine that survival rate must be low. But now this is research coming out of the group that manages the largest hospital chain in the New York area. And this is based on a data of 5,700 patients. And it tells you, listen to this carefully, it tells you that 88.1% of all the patients who go on the ventilator do not survive. Now, I don't want to, it's a very stark fact, but I don't want to overstate it, because it is a life-saving machine. God forbid somebody needs it. But to think that if you just stockpile ventilators and have lakhs and lakhs of them, in some ways it becomes a kind of medical last rites, because it's the last thing that the doctor tries. It's like we used to say in the old movies, अब इनको सिर्फ भगवान बचा सकता है, अब आप इनके लिए सिर्फ पूजा कीजिए. So this is part of the puja. So the best thing is to not get to that stage. So what it means is, if I may simplify it for you, that if you put 1,000 patients on the ventilator, if 1,000 patients get to that stage, less than 120 will come out alive. So it is best not to reach that stage, to catch the disease early, to have it treated early, and to have the patient looked after early, so the patient doesn't go into that stage. Can you always avoid it? I don't know, because if you could, the doctors would do it. But this is just one of those interesting and important data points. So this study has been done in the Northwell Health hospital systems in New York of 5,700 patients. It tells you something else about these patients also. Patients who are hospitalized, because that gives you an idea of who's more likely to fall more sick so as to need hospitalization. So 57% of these patients had hypertension, 57%. 41% had obesity, and 34% had diabetes. And it's quite likely many of these things go together. So it's quite likely that many of these had two of these conditions or three of these conditions. It's almost like if you add it all up, it's almost like 100% of these had some of these complications or something worth looking at. Finally, who dies? Again, very stark and very revealing data points. Now, one thing that's been discussed for some time, again in America, because America has the largest base of patients, largest base of patients who passed away, unfortunately, and also the most open system when it comes to data sharing. So you can see that it's quite evident that minorities there, particularly African Americans and Hispanics, are dying in numbers disproportionate to their population. And this particularly applies to African Americans. Now, if you look at various cities, say New York, African Americans are 22% in New York, 28% of all the deaths in New York are African American. Some difference, but you might say not so much. Then go to Los Angeles. 9% of Los Angeles' population is black, 17% of the dead are black. So this is almost 100% more, twice as much as your proportion in the population. Chicago is the most stark. 29% population of Chicago is African American. 71% of the deaths are African American. Now, Anthony Fauci, who's Trump's and America's favorite infectious diseases doctor and specialist, he's worked on viruses for all his life, and he's not young. He said in one of his interviews, he said that it is quite evident that people in African American communities have a higher incidence of hypertension, diabetes, asthma. But the fourth thing that is quite clear by way of a distinction is obesity. Now, America has a big obesity problem. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, in a conversation with me, said yesterday that as many as 47% of the deaths in America can be ascribed to or had an involvement of morbid obesity, because obesity is a big problem in America. But look at some data. In America, if you look at the larger data or overall data, then of Caucasian adults, that's essentially the white population, 29.7% are obese. For African Americans, 39.8% are obese. So much higher. For Caucasian adult males, 31.1% are obese. For African American males, 34.4% are obese. For Caucasian adult females, 27.5% are obese. For African American adult females, 44.7% are obese. So once again, what is this virus telling us? This virus is telling us that there are many problems that we can do nothing about. If a virus comes, turns really rogue in your body, there is very little you can do until a treatment comes or until a vaccine comes to save you from getting it. But what are the allies that this virus is seeking? Essentially, the allies the virus is seeking are metabolic disorders, which has genetic factors. In fact, many of those genetic factors apply in India. We have a lot of hypertension, a lot of kidney disease, a lot of diabetes, some obesity. But these are also things that you can now address with lifestyle changes. So if you've had better lifestyle discipline, then this virus is less capable of causing you harm. And that might be true of any new viruses that may come along, because sure enough, this will not be the last one. So once again, the virus is telling you that the key to fighting bad guys like this coronavirus is to have a stronger system of your own and to at least ensure that we do not have avoidable sicknesses like metabolic disorders, from diabetes to hypertension to obesity.